Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Joelle. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Joelle.
And I have the privilege of introducing today's speaker, Howard B. Howard lives in the west of England near the Malvern Hills with his wife, his children, and his dog. He's a member of a 12-step fellowship and leads meditation retreats. He is a founding member of the Gutter Monks, a UK group of addicts in recovery who practices centering prayer as their 11th step and who passed this simple method onto others in 12-step recovery. During COVID, Gutter Monks went online and now hold weekly Zoom meetings with an international membership. He is a counselor and a spiritual director, and his work with clients from diverse backgrounds is supported and led by the contemplative life. And he's one of our favorite gutter monks. You know, we say we take our recovery seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. And Howard is a beautiful example of that. And he's going to be talking to you today.
Thank you, Joelle. And thank you to the committee, Jim, Jenny, Joanna. Joanna got me and Father Matt out of a storm. That was wild. Was Joanna here? No, she's not here. That was incredible. I was a completely lost sheep without a mobile phone that worked in Atlanta airport, which is bigger than some European countries, by the way. Why? I don't know. Your country's so big. And Joanna came and rescued us. I mean, this is amazing. This is just this feels so well put together. Not something I'm used to. Yeah, it's really beautiful. That welcoming prayer is good, Jim. Thanks. Comes in useful at moments like this, I find. If you haven't tried it, it's worth doing, right? I like to start like this. I'm not sure how many of you are au fait with 12-step recovery, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll try and speak to both camps. I should say this, I'm kind of used to speaking, but I'm used to speaking in places where there's more cast members from The Walking Dead than there are people who look like you. You all seem really nice. And if I manage to get out of the way enough, something else will happen, and I can't be held responsible for what comes out of my mouth. And so if I use fruity language or imagery that is upsetting, I want to apologize to you in advance. But that's kind of the world that my centering prayer world is like that. It doesn't look like a Microsoft conference, which is what this looks like to me. So if I offend anybody, speak to your sponsor. And as my old sponsor used to say, Howard, you need to go and thank them for bringing up some darkness in you that you didn't know was there. So,
welcome home.
Yeah. So I start like this. This is a reading from There Is a Solution. Great fact is just this and nothing else. We have had deep and effective spiritual awakenings, which has revolutionized our attitude towards life, towards you, and towards God's universe. The central fact of my life today is the absolute certainty that intelligent love has entered into my heart and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. That power has commenced to accomplish things for me which I could never have done by myself. Feels true. So I'm an addict. I'm a crackhead. I'm a junkie. I like vodka for breakfast. I'm an addict, and my name's Howard. And I also live in a different world. I live in a world of, well, I don't call it this, but a kind of wellness world. I'm a psychotherapist. And in those worlds, there's a misunderstanding of this sort of, that we would sit in rooms and say, hi, I'm an addict, my name's Howard. They would see that as self-limiting. They would see that as perpetuating a negative story about ourselves that in some way we have to be released from. And I find it very hard to, well, I don't even bother explaining to my colleagues as to why. When I sit in a drafty, cold church hall and I sit down in a circle and somebody says, my name's Joel and I'm an alcoholic, I can't explain to them how that circle then suddenly becomes a sacred circle. But it does. But it does. In you saying that, your vulnerability allows me to become vulnerable, and I feel safe with you. And when I feel safe, I can be authentic. And when I'm authentic, that power that feels like knitting custard sometimes. Sorry, you guys, custard is different. Gravy. It feels like knitting gravy sometimes, this God journey, right? But that's when I feel it. When you say, I'm an alcoholic, my name's Judy, I just go, oh, okay, right. It's my tribe. I belong. The other part of that is that when I first walked into one of those rooms, I didn't believe you were addicts or alcoholics. You all looked too far, too shiny and too well. I was done. I was broken. I was literally carried into my first meeting by a psychiatric nurse. And to hear you say it, I didn't believe it until you described your story. And when I heard your story, I couldn't deny it because it's your story, right? I'd had lots of people telling me what was wrong with me, but then I'd never heard anybody say what was wrong with them. And then for me to hear you say that, but for you to be shiny, for you to have the light on in your eyes, for you to have an open heart, for you to seemingly care more about me than I could ever care about myself. Well, that produced something in me that I can't quantify and have words for. And then the final piece of that, I'm a drug addict and my name's Howard, is that's my sacred wound. That's my sacred wound. See, that's the place where I first felt God enter me. That's the place that reminds me of what I am. I'm much more than just an addict, of course I am. But that admission of my powerlessness, that was the start of the journey for me. There's nothing I can do about this. When I put one inside of me, I cannot control the amount I use. And when I stop, when I really, really want to stop, when I have another child, when I make a New Year's resolution in July, I have a memory problem. I have amnesia. I forget the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. And the thought comes into my head, one won't hurt. And then I'm off again. So that admission of powerlessness over a substance was the start of a journey, which now I'm powerless over loads of things. It's great. Originally, it was a bit of a problem. What do you mean? It's like, I'm powerless. I should be able to, everything about our culture, I should be able to try harder. If I tried harder, if I was a better person, if I did this, I could be able to stop it. But no, I'm powerless. I'm as powerless over crack and heroin as I was years and years ago. But that portal, that's this sacred wound, which allows me to feel I'm powerless over what I think you think of me. Right? My first sponsor wrote in my big book, quite rudely, I think, your higher power is what you think I think of you. Still in there. Quite rude, that, isn't it? What are you saying? But the more I do this journey, the more I consent, the more I consent, the more I consent, I feel a tremendous relief of so many things. And the admission of that powerlessness, in one of those divine paradoxes, accesses power immediately. Immediately accesses power. As I lose that sense of it's all on me, something else happens. And I was separated from drugs and alcohol. Absolutely separated from it. I have not, in my years in recovery, I have never once hung on for dear life and said, I mustn't use ever again. Never happened. That's a shock to me. Because the previous, where am I? Oh, there, that'll do, yeah. I picked up really, really early. I was given away twice as a baby. I started changing how I felt by stealing compulsively from the age of 4. I never made it to the end of any educational establishment. I was asked to leave for various reasons I won't go into. But so I left it as long as possible before picking up a mind-altering substance. So when I was 12 and I was given cider and amphetamines, it's just like, thank goodness for that, right? Here's the solution to what I'm experiencing, because what I'm experiencing is just so over my pay grade. I'm only able to talk like this as a 60-year-old man who's done a lot of work on himself, but I was terrified. And those mind-altering substances absolutely sorted that. So then through till the age of 45, and having to stop the drudgery and the terror of servicing a daily opiate habit was no longer rock and roll. I smoked all my crack in laybys, crouched underneath a dashboard. I don't know if any of you have ever read the crack smoking manual, but you're supposed to sort of be upright and have all of your chakras aligned when you inhale cocaine. I think that's how it is. All of my using was done under dashboards, being terrified of what Polish truck drivers thought I was doing. I was no longer rock and roll. So when I was taken to a psychiatric unit to be separated from my family and from drugs and alcohol, I knew there was a problem. I also thought I worked there. Apparently I didn't. So I'm in this place. The night before I was taken in there, I'm quite a bright guy. I worked in the media for a long time. I should know this stuff. I think I'd heard of AA via a Sopranos episode or something. I think I'd heard of AA. I hadn't realized, yeah, right, okay, that's a thing. And I Googled 12 steps and the word God appeared. And my terrified family downstairs, who were probably just counting the seconds until the bus came and picked me up and took me away, as I threw my toys out of the pram, like, you're sending me to a cult. I'm not going there. Don't you know who I think I am? Blah, 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 blah. And so I was dead against the whole God thing and the whole 12 step. I mean, I really was dead against it. I was a very, very poorly boy. I ended up in these group rooms, and on the walls there were various, posters of cats going, "Yay, you can do it," things like that. I hate freaking cats. Anyway, there's poster cat, and there were various, I think there were various spiritual posters and readings on the wall. I was so full of shame that for the first week I didn't lift my head up. I couldn't have seen them. And then one day they started to do some meditation, and they started to breathe. And I must have been breathing too. I hadn't lifted my head. And apparently, and I'm still very good friends with two people who were in the room with me, apparently I had some kind of seizure. I passed out. I soiled myself on the floor in the middle of the room, and I remember nothing about it. And I came to, and I was saying this: don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deep. Let it ferment and season you as few humans and even divine ingredients can. Something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need of God absolutely clear. Now, that's by Hafiz, as you know. Now, apparently that was on the wall. I never read it. I don't know. But from that moment on, something shifted. My that prejudice just went. I think it went because we were breathing, and that my wife loves yoga, and she couldn't. There was just a realization that she'd had to stop going to yoga for quite a few years because I couldn't be trusted to be in the house on my own with my children. And something in that moment, God came in. So I don't know, God came in. And it just went. So any struggle about what you guys believe in or what I believe in or what be just went. And there was just no struggle. The debating society is out. So Joelle asked me to talk about step 11. Father Matt's going to be talking about it as well. And I suppose it's worth saying what the steps are for those of you who don't know. So I'm going to read the 12 steps. So 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all the persons we'd harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admitted it. And step 11, what I'm supposed to be talking about today, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Father Thomas believed that this was, I believe, somebody correct me, this was your country's most important contribution to spirituality. Richard Rohr, I think, believes this is the most important contribution to spirituality in the last few hundred years. I'm so privileged to be part of this tribe. This is next level stuff, right? I'm in this like, what? I'm going to go and say sorry to everyone. What? This, all of that, right? I'm not going to be. This is so much of that is over my pay grade. But something, initially a desperation not to go and smoke crack again, to be allowed back into my family, to try and live as a decent human being. That was the energy which led me to trust something bigger than me. But I still didn't have the power to carry out any of this stuff. I needed a power in my life in order to carry out this stuff. So I'm not very good at counting. But I think step 11, in fact, this is how we do it where I'm from. Step 11 is before step 1. I need you to slow down enough, even for 5 seconds, in order to just get still and get present, to even to understand that I might be powerless over drugs and alcohol. Don't leave step 11 until a sort of a postscript at the end. It's all about that. I'll come on to that in a bit. So there I am. I'm an addict. I know I'm an addict. I'm totally in with a fellowship. I completely believe all of this stuff. I've gone from, king atheist to absolute believer. I've gone through the steps really quickly. I've been separated from drugs and alcohol. I'm still separated from my family. I'm 100 and something miles away from my family. I'm not well enough to be going back to a home with young children, much as I wanted to be and much as maybe I thought I was. I remember going into a meeting in South London. It was a pretty hardcore kind of deal in those days. It was a sort of get God or die, one of those friendly, they have their place. And I was doing everything. And I remember speaking to a guy after a meeting, and I said, "No, I'm doing everything I can. I haven't smoked any cocaine today. I want to get into my family." And he said, "Mate, you should try letting go and letting God." What now? He said, "Let go, let God, mate." The best Jedi shit I'd ever heard. I was like, what? And I was halfway to the tube station, and I just went, "But I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to let go and let God. It sounds great, but no one showed me how to let go and let God." You can see where this is going, right? So I'd done a lot of damage to myself. And even though I was clean and sober, my body collapsed. Wasn't surprising. It was I basically funded Pablo Escobar's flat screen TVs for about 20 years. And there's consequences to that kind of lifestyle. And so I became very, very ill in recovery, and I was bedbound for a number of years. And there was no medical help for what I was experiencing. But what I knew was I had caused the people I love tremendous amounts of pain and heartache and worry. And I was absolutely determined I should not ever do that again, if at all possible. Trouble was, you guys took my drugs and alcohol away, which, then loads of feelings come up. Goodness, feelings, right? And my body had collapsed. And I was in the most pain I'd ever been in my life because I had nothing to medicate it with. Luckily, somebody threw a mindfulness CD at me, and I grabbed hold of that thing like my life depended upon it, which actually I think it did, because it taught me the most valuable lesson I've probably ever been taught, which is not everything that appears between Howard's ears is true. Hang on a minute. I mean, you mean everything that's in there isn't necessarily true? Yeah, you laugh. I mean, I was like, no. I have opinions. I have thoughts. So I held on to that thing. I wore it out. I went, I am I'm also probably a workaholic and also a perfectionist and a little bit of a control freak. And I go for something, I really go for it. I don't just dabble with drugs. Full on drug addict. And also right now recovery. Right, I'm going to go full on recovery. Now here's some meditation. Right, I'm going to go. So I was, I just went for it because there was nothing else. There was no cure for what I was experiencing physically. I didn't really understand the spiritual malady at that time. I just thought if I got physically well, I could go back to work in my very shiny job in the media and everything would be all right if I got physically well. Obviously, not going to smoke crack under dashboards anymore. We know that. But if I can just get physically well. So I'd end up in these retreats, amazing places in the UK. I could hardly walk to get there. It was just the most painful time of my life. And I would sit for 50 minutes doing something like metta, and there would be this beautiful lily pond outside and these saffron robed monks around me. And I was going for it. And it was just the most unutterable pain. And I'd kind of open my eyes and I'd see these beatific smiles on these monks' faces. And all I could think of was, I just want to kill you all. Now, the fact you're laughing is worrying, because that's me. Yeah. Okay. See, I relaxed a little bit when you laughed then, because that meant, all right, I'm not the only weirdo in the room. I knew Richard was already quite weird, but now it's like, all right, more weirdos. Fantastic. So I wanted to kill some Saffron Road monks because they were feeling really happy, right? Yeah, good. Oh, right. In those moments of the most painful time of my life, I realized something quite profound for me. I had been separated from drugs and alcohol, the biggest problem in my life, by a power greater than myself that I didn't need to understand, that I didn't have to earn it. I didn't really have to do anything for it. I just placed myself in a position through the 12 steps whereby something I could not make happen overtook me and did for me, which I could not do for myself. Well, that's pretty big stuff, right? Anyway, yeah, that's okay. I'm going to go and meditate now. I'm going to go and meditate. I'm going to do some. I am meditating. And I am meditating, and I am meditating around this incredible physical and psychological pain that I am experiencing. And I am going for it. And I am following my breath. And I am putting out love and kindness in between nuclear weapons that I'm sending at monks. I am doing this, but I still feel the same. So my only conclusion is that I am failing at meditation. I am getting it wrong. I am not doing this right. And at that moment, because I'm a seeker, I was listening to hundreds. I mean, it's all I did, because I was bedbound most times. I listened to stuff, and I think it was spiritualityandpractice.com, and I think David Frenette was on there, and I think he was talking about centering prayer. And I was aware of Merton Keating, and I used to get the two mixed up, and whatever. And he started talking about centering prayer, and something he said landed, and I just went, right, well, I'm going to do it then. And I just like, I'll show you. Says this will work. I'll show him. And I went for it. And everything changed. Everything changed because I had two higher powers. One who was keeping me sober, and I didn't check in with that higher power and see, how's that higher power doing at keeping me sober at 3 o'clock in the afternoon? It was just a done deal. That was done. But this higher power over here that was supposed to sort my life out and get me well and happy and be able to enjoy my recovery that I'd been given, this was a really crappy higher power. The higher power was me, I think, over there, probably. And so centering prayer came into my life. And it was, the understanding of it was instant. It just made sense. Absolutely, it did. You know, I think Father Matt and I will talk about this more tomorrow, about why centering prayer is so, why it just does that with the 12 steps. I think we can talk about that more tomorrow, and I'd be really interested in hearing your opinions about it. But it just worked. In the final reality, you know, in the final analysis, God is found deep down inside, right? Centering prayer. What are we doing? Oh, we're consenting to God deep down inside. So it's just like, all right, it's a no-brainer. And also, and I, again, no words for this, but I know some of you, the conversations I've had, I think there is a primordial understanding going back to when we were in the flipping caves, that it's right. Okay, there's something here going on, right? It just made sense. But I was still in unutterable pain. And of course, being the kind of person I'm, all right, centering prayer. Well, you know, I can hardly walk. I'm not very good at breathing. What I need to do is go to Mount Sopris for a 10-day silent retreat. Then that's obvious. Can't walk, can't breathe. I'll go and get altitude sickness and sit with a bunch of weirdos up there. Thank God I did. Thank God I did. Met some of you there. Now, the weirdest thing is, and I hear it all the time in 12-step recovery, is addiction can be described as a disease of isolation, right? I'm not sure I'm completely down with it, but I understand that paradigm. Yeah? So it's a disease of isolation. I am cut off from myself. I'm cut off from the people I love, and I'm cut off from God. The most lonely place I've ever been in the world is sat on a sofa next to my wife, breastfeeding my youngest son. And there's a part of me knows that this should be the perfect moment. This is almost like the sort of the Christmas card moment. It should be lovely. And yet I feel the most alone I've ever felt in my life, right? So I get it. And then you walk into a 12-step room and there's a load of strangers saying, hi, my name's Richard, I'm an alcoholic. And suddenly I feel connected. And what's more, you used like I used, but you're not like me. You're like me, or you were like me, but you're not like me anymore. And that just flips your brain out. When you're new in, it just absolutely spangles you. It's like, right, there's a kind of that you were a drug addict, but you're like this next, like you're all like monks or something, you know. It's just like, what the hell? It's a shame that wears off, actually. That's a great feeling. You know, that's a great feeling. I see it. I saw it last night. Charles and I went to a meeting last night, and you just sort of, you saw them bust in, the cast from The Walking Dead come in, and they're terrified. And then they hear Charles's story, and they go, oh, not only did he use like I use, his weird feelings and thoughts are very similar to, and you see the kind of like, okay. Now, fast forward a few years, I've been in recovery a while, and I end up at Snowmass, and I had that experience again. Because I started bumping into monks who just were emanating so much love, I couldn't compute it. Somebody would give me a warm muffin, and I would burst into tears. I would literally burst into tears. I was being overcome by love. And they all looked like, no, I mean, is it just me hearing voices again? I haven't taken my meds today, so um, they felt like aliens. They felt like these floating divine beings. It was like, right, I'm doing all of this spiritual stuff, and then it's like, oh, right, it could look like that. When I came into recovery, I needed you who'd been here before me to show me what it could look like if I do what you do. And then I turn up at Snowmass and I feel it. And I'm like, wow. So if I do what you do for the next 80 years, then I could that. It was just this massive road sign to me that just went, it is all about love. And there's enough of me was able to absorb that. So I met Father Thomas. How embarrassing. Well, it probably wasn't for him. I was just a fanboy. I was just a total fanboy. I just wanted to, touch you. You're so great. And they took me to see Father Thomas. That was after seeing Father William, who he's the grumpy monk. He was fantastic. I went and saw him in the dark of night after service one night, and we'd had a snowstorm, and there were coyotes outside. And the woman who dropped me off there said, "Don't leave any food outside because the bears have worked out how to undo the lock on the door." I'm from flipping England, right? It's like, where am I? And Father William, have you been baptized, son? Are you sure it's a good idea to walk back up to the retreat center alone if you haven't been? And before you go, how many medieval English mystics can you name? Awesome, dude. I love him. Love it. So anyway, yeah, Father Thomas. Okay, so he he was really interested in what we were doing. So I wasn't, there was a bunch. I was sponsoring a lot of guys, and we would give step 11 as step 1, right? That's what we did. We had people detoxing in the community, and I was talking to him about that. And I don't imagine. I know Father Thomas met lots and lots and lots of people. I don't imagine he met lots of English crackheads because I don't know. I don't know if I was the first one. Anyway, it was just so incisive, and he said, I asked him, should I be giving centering prayer to English crackheads in order for them to go through the work? And he said, yes, absolutely. Absolutely should. They need to have something to slow down enough to be in the room. But he said on 2 conditions. Genius. 1, they have to be in service. They have to be in service. Absolutely right. They have to be putting out chairs or making coffee. They give them something to do. Give them centering prayer, but give them something to do. And the second thing, which is where I think he hadn't met many English crackheads before, was he said, but don't let them do more than 2 lots of 20 minutes a day. You haven't met many of my sponsees, have you? 2 lots of 2 minutes a day, so like we're in the win column, right? He said something else to me. And I still sit with it. He said, Howard, he said, you're a pencil in God's hand, but you've got to remember sometime he puts the pencil down. That frightened the crap out of me. And I'm still working with that. I know that he was giving me that, and I'm still working with that. And being the fallible human being that I am, I'm getting it wrong every day, and that's okay too. After my last relapse, years and years and years ago, I ended up in a monastery, and one of the monks said, God loves you for your weaknesses and your insecurities, and he encourages you to do the same. Now that felt like speaking Serbo-Croat at the time. It didn't make sense. Today it makes sense. And so so that getting it wrong all the time, the fact that I think I am the pencil the whole time, and the fact that I get it wrong on a daily basis, I am so forgiving of myself, whereas I wasn't for all those years. So we started a group called the Gutter Monks. Thomas liked that name a lot. He giggled at that name. He thought that was fantastic. Why we're called the Gutter Monks is if I'm just in the monastery, if I've got 2 feet in the monastery, I'm no good for the person who's like me, who's still suffering out there. If I'm totally out there and I haven't got 1 foot in the monastery, I'm still no good to that person out there. I have to have 1 foot in the monastery and 1 foot in the gutter in order to be of service to you. Each day in my morning meditation, I ask how I can help the man who's still sick. The answers will come if my own house is in order. I cannot transmit something I haven't got. So I'm a gutter monk. I've got 1 foot in the monastery and I've got 1 foot in the gutter. I feel really, really happy there. You can be a gutter monk too if you want. 10 years. So earlier this year, Giles and I said the Gutter Monk service team, we're quite a few years behind 12-step outreach, right? But you're our model. I know that's worrying, isn't it? You're our model. And so for the first time, so we've had with dozens and dozens of retreats over the years, but this year we just had a service team retreat. We didn't have any new people. We just had us guys, and we got a place out in the Welsh mountains. The weather was very similar to the Thursday weather here. It was horizontal rain, and we had a silent 24 hours because I could only get them together for 4 days. So we had 1 day was completely silent. And I pulled out my old journal from when I was at Snowmass. I got so much love for that boy who was there 10 years ago, because I was in so much pain, and I was asking Father Thomas, and I was asking Pat, and I was asking Abbot Joseph. I was asking them, like, why? How do I get this? How do I get this? I just want to get this. Look, please, if you tell me to do 10 sits a day, I'll do 10 sits a day with broken glass in my pants. I want to, how do I get this? And this journal was just full of this. I've got to get this. I've got to get this. I got nothing I wanted. I got nothing I wanted. But what I've got is far more miraculous, nurturing, nourishing than I could have even predicted. I'm part of a contemplative community in recovery. How did I get that? I got all that just because I can't smoke crack like a gentleman. If I could smoke crack like a gentleman, I wouldn't need you guys, right? So what do I do? Oh, one more thing. And this only came yesterday when we were watching that amazing film of Thomas. And I was blessed with a brief conversation with Mary earlier. I had an intuition when I was watching Thomas yesterday that he must have had many, many, many young men like me over the years come up who were just like, how do I get, whatever. I mean, I was probably, because I'm quite self-seeking, so I would have probably tried to appear quite spiritual, but inside I was like, how do I get this? How do I do this? It's like, it's so much pain, right? And I'm guessing he would have seen straight through this, and there was a hand on my hand. The really strong intuition I had yesterday was that as I went out of that room with him, he placed a sticker on my back. I didn't know about the sticker on my back. Thank God I did not know about the sticker on my back. But I think what he did was he pushed me on. And the centering prayer community within our fellowship now is huge. I didn't ever have any intention of spreading the message. I just wanted to get well and not inflict any more pain on my family. But something else has happened, and it defies, I cannot even explain it to you, but I get texts, dozens of texts on a daily basis of people just writing to me in a WhatsApp group or everywhere, just of like, this is what's come up for them. This is the healing they've received this morning in centering prayer. And this is on a daily basis. I get this. I didn't get physically well, but I got that. And I believe he pushed me out of the room back to Europe without telling me to, and to say, go and do that. So I have a daily discipline. I've never done less than 2 sits a day. For somebody as crackers as me, that is a bare minimum. I need to consent to the divine therapist for 2 lots of 20 minutes a day. What I think happens is this. This is a process of divine archaeology. We scrape away gently with, sometimes there's a pickaxe involved, but rarely for me it is, right? Scrapes away the crap to get to the good stuff underneath. To do that, I have to turn up for 2 sits a day at least. I also sit with other men face to face at least once a week, and I go on several retreats a year. That's the bare minimum for somebody put together like me. I'm neurodiverse, squirrel. I can't keep a thought in my head for very long. I've got pretty significant trauma in my life, and I have never. If you're thinking about starting centering prayer, and I'm pretty sure everyone here, if you're thinking, oh, I wonder if I should try centering prayer, this is the bit you should tune out to. You shouldn't listen to me at this bit, okay? Tune to another channel now. I have never experienced silence. Every sit is like an extreme sport. It is not pleasant. I don't get stroked by angels. But what happens is I get up from my seat and I experience stillness. I experience stillness in most of my waking life. I have the gift of being really, really okay with not being okay. I work with trauma victims in a contemplative setting. You really, really need to be okay with not being okay. That's from centric prayer. You remember I said the let go, let God? I didn't know how to do it. You guys showed me how to do it. All I do is I turn up and I go to God's gym, and I've developed a let go, let God muscle. Most of my life is over my pay grade. Fear, our big book says, is an evil and corrosive thread which permeates every part of my life. I'm a very fearful little boy. My fearful little boy, given the chance, is going to run the show. He likes chatting. He's been quite quiet right now, actually. I think I gave him some Haribo earlier, and I said I'd take him to the swings later. But I have developed, this is my part. Everything else, nothing to do with me. I have developed a let go, let God muscle, which is, it's a grace that I'm allowed to sit down, right? That's a grace that I've been drawn to this. But it's my part of the bargain is I turn up, I hit the timer, I start thinking about football, food, fornication, anything other than consenting to God's presence and action in my life. Literally, that is the last thing that happens. But I want to have an intimate relationship with intelligent love. I promise you I do. I want it more than you do. I hit the timer and then just all sorts of absolute bollocks takes place, right? What happens is I can say, oh. Yeah, now that's been going on for decades. I'm built like Arnold Schwarzenegger inside with the let go, let God muscle, right? I've got a really good let go, let God muscle. I'm so glad that when I started doing sits, and I do know people like this, I've got newcomers who've been sober 3 minutes and they go, oh man, yeah, I just had nothing. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because what I get when I go off the seat is I've just got this really got a wicked let go, let go muscle, right? Because all of my sits are just absolute car crashes. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about it. Look, my job is not to work out what God is. My job is not to work out what God is. My only job is to become aware of what God isn't. I thought God was in really prestigious work, nice trainers, good house. I get into recovery. I'm pretty sure that God was what I thought you thought of me. Then I'll have a Father Christmas, not all that. This process of dismantling this illusion that God is distant or absent, right? It's piece by piece. And I just become aware of it. Oh, it's not that. All right, that isn't working anymore. Oh, I'm going to be a spiritual guru. No, that's caused you loads of pain. Don't do that one, right? Oh, I'm going to be really sort of, no, you're not going to do it. You know what I mean? It's just this process of reduction. My only job is to work out what God isn't. And then reality just comes up more and more and more. Dr. Bob, in his final talk to AA, said, the 12 steps condensed down to their last part is love and service. Love and service, love and service. That's what I do. I just do love and service. I breathe in love and I breathe out service. I turn up, I consent to God, and I'm in service. Love, service. And then I'm breathing in service, and that's breathing in love. And it's just this loop that just happens in my life. Thing I'm working with at the moment, I have nothing clever to say about it, but this is what I'm working with at the moment. And the process is like this for me, is that in St. Thomas's Gospel, it says, what is the sign of your Father? It is movement and rest. Movement and rest. And that feels like love and service to me. Movement and rest. Movement and rest. I consent to God's presence and action in my life. I'm trying to rest. And then I'm up and I'm in movement and I'm sitting with the least, the lost, and the lonely. And sometimes that feels like rest. And sometimes centering prayer feels like movement. And sometimes something that should feel like service feels like love, and something that feels like love feels like service. And it's just this movement, and it's so simple. For somebody who will overcomplicate the shit out of stuff, this is really helpful. This is all love and service, movement and rest, love and service, movement and rest. And I just have to be aware sometimes which one it is. So I got here a few weeks ago. I took my 30-year-old son, who is possibly the person who is the person who suffered the most as a result of me being a drug addict. And I took him, he was 30, I was 60, and I took him on a trip of a lifetime. We went to Seattle, and we drove down probably a couple of thousand miles in the end. And it was just wonderful. It was just wonderful. And there's a couple of things that happened. The last place we stopped was San Francisco. Now, I spent a lot of time in America doing lots of recovery stuff in America. And obviously, my work and everything, I'm not frightened of severe mental illness and active addiction. This is almost my happy place. Strange boy. The streets of San Francisco were next level. I don't know if you've seen it. It's shocking, even to me, what's going on there at the moment. Now, when I was 21, I was an addict, but didn't know it. As I said, I was given away twice as a baby. Fast forward to 21, I'm an addict. I'm homeless in Brighton. I get a girl pregnant, and we give the child away. Now Grace comes into my life. I had parents in another part of the country. I was able to go and be put back together, pretty much like the prodigal son. I go back. I re-establish myself. I get a nice shiny career in media. I don't put the drugs and the alcohol down. The drugs and alcohol get worse. My eldest son becomes the biggest victim of that. And he's a big lad, by the way. He's 6'3" and he is ripped. He's big. He's a big boy. And he was terrified of being on these streets. And we were looking, and he knew that could be his dad. What we were looking at is, I'm not dramatizing, I was so close so many times to that safety net of being white and middle class. That could have fallen away so easily, and I could have gone through, and I could have been that guy on the streets. And so then the blessing of being with him being given back to me in so many ways, I can't quantify it, right? Can't quantify it. And the other thing that happened was I live in one of the most beautiful areas of the UK, but it's landlocked, and I've never seen a whale. Always wanted to see a whale. So we went to Depot Bay. Did you know? And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of my favorite films, not surprisingly, right? I know. Who'd have thought it would be one of my favorite films, right? That's where they filmed it. I didn't know. We'd booked a whale watching trip, and that's where they filmed Jack Nicholson taking out the lunatics on the boat in Depot Bay, right? And that morning we were together. He was quite frightened of going out on a boat, and it was like the whale petting zoo. It was the whale petting zoo. And they were there, and it was amazing. And then we went back to where we were staying, and we were just watching the ocean. And I knew that the whales that we'd seen were under the surface of the sea. I couldn't see them, but they were there. They were still singing their song, but I couldn't see them. And that feels so much like what we do. I get moments. I get moments where I get to pet the whale. When I'm sitting with somebody, when the lights come on in their eyes, when you share with me, and I know that your open heart is touching my open heart, that feels like when I'm petting the whale. All right, there's God. God's a verb. Hello, God. The rest of the time, God's still there. He's singing underneath the surface of the waves. It's my job to turn up and tune into that, right? So the gutter monks have retreats. I'll finish on this. I hope I haven't offended anybody with my language, and I hope that you've got something from this. If you want to come and talk to me afterwards, please do. Father Matt and I will be doing something tomorrow. We don't know why yet, because Joel hasn't told us, but so when we have retreats, we finish with this reading and then a prayer. And if you indulge me, we always finish Gutter Monks retreats with this reading and this prayer. So if you aren't already a Gutter Monk, and I know some of you are, you can be a Gutter Monk right now. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And then finish with a prayer. Dear God, deliver me to my passion. Deliver me to my brilliance. Deliver me to my intelligence. Deliver me to my depth. Deliver me to my nobility. Deliver me to my beauty. Deliver me to my power to heal. Deliver me to you. Amen. Thank you for letting me be of service.